Jesse, if you'll continue to let people in. Then Carrie, I will let you go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Nye, and I'm an assistant planner on this project with Arundel County. As we're just getting started here, I want to go over some quick housekeeping notes about this meeting. So Patrick, could you go to the next slide? If everyone could just do us the favor of making sure you're on mute during the first half of this meeting, we'll be delivering a brief presentation. Everyone will be invited to unmute during the breakout rooms, and we'll have the opportunity to have some more discussion with each other. In case you didn't see that alert pop up, this meeting is being recorded. We'll post it online in the next week or so after this evening. And we want to encourage folks to keep their video on during the breakout rooms, especially just so we can maybe get to know each other, see your neighbors. And if you're unable to have any questions answered during this meeting through the chat function or during the discussion, I just want to throw out now that you're please invited to email us at paroleplan@aacounty.org with any lingering questions. We'll be providing responses to those questions on our website through the FAQ section. So definitely please help us build out that content. And next slide, please. So here's our agenda for this evening. I'm going to start with introducing some of the county staff who are joining us. As I mentioned, my name's Carrie. I'll be working throughout this parole on the master plan throughout the whole process. I'm joined tonight by 3 senior planners. So there's Patrick Hughes, who's also leading this project. And we're joined by Mark Wildonger and Don Ziegler, who are also senior planners in the Office of Planning and Zoning. They're supporting us this evening. And Jessie Levy is our support lead, and she's here this night as well. I can't totally see everyone who's signed into this meeting in the last minute or two, but I know we're joined by some folks from the Anne Arundel Office of Transportation and from Inspections and Permits. I saw Eric Lashinsky from the City of Annapolis join. Hi, Eric. And I know that we're expecting some of our PAV representatives and county council staff. Either they're here now or they're going to join us soon. So thank you to them as well. For the run of show tonight, we're going to hear a brief presentation from Patrick that kind of goes over the history of the parole master plan, catches everyone up to where we are now. But the bulk of the meeting is going to be dedicated to the planners listening to members of the community. We're going to have some breakout rooms for us to all get together to discuss the ideas that you have about challenges and assets of parole, as well as things that you'd like to see happen over the next 10 years. We'll wrap up with a community report back and some next steps where you can find more information and continue to stay engaged in this process. So thank you again for joining us on the virtual format. And Patrick, I'll hand it off.
Great. Thank you very much, Carrie. As Carrie said, my name is Patrick Hughes. I'm a planner in the Long Range Planning Division with the Office of Planning and Zoning. So I want to give a quick overview of what are we talking about when we talk about the Parole Town Center. This area is also known as the Parole Growth Management Area, and it's approximately 1,500 acres that is outside of the city of Annapolis, outside of it and immediately adjacent to the west of the city of Annapolis. This includes a number of key areas like the Westfield Mall and the Anne Arundel Medical Center. The town center extends, well, the center of the town center is really what's called the Annapolis Town Center at Parole. It also includes all of the Housley Road area, so extending around to Gateway Center Village and the Best Buy shopping center. It also extends all the way down Riva Road to the Heritage Complex, which is the county government offices, the Board of Education. It does not include the Annapolis High School. So that is the area that is going to be covered by the Parole Town Center master plan update. Now, we have had a question, and just to be clear, why are we not including the Parole neighborhood of the city of Annapolis? And the reason why is the Parole Town Center is a county, an Anne Arundel County designation. I will point out that the city does have several planning efforts that are underway or that have been underway or that are underway covering the Parole neighborhood. And these include plans like the Upper West Street sector study and the Eastport Forest Drive sector study. Both of those touch on the Parole neighborhood, but of course, the city is now updating its comprehensive plan, and that's a citywide plan that will also incorporate recommendations for the Parole neighborhood. So we do coordinate closely with the city on all of these planning efforts, on their planning efforts, and ours for the town center. So currently, the town center has about 3,700 residents and 2,000 households, but an estimated 14,000 workers. And several of the county's largest employers are headquartered here, including, as I mentioned before, the Board of Education, the county public schools, and the county government is headquartered here, also the medical center. But there are also places of significant collective employment, such as at Westfield Mall, Annapolis Town Center, and some of the other commercial centers in the area. So this is the area that we're talking about. And as a warm up, we have a couple of interactive polls that I would like to launch for the audience. And our first one is, do you live in the Parole Town Center? So, whoops, give me 1 second to launch that poll. Here we go.
I don't think so.
Okay, so can everybody see that poll? I'm going to give people a minute to answer whether you live within the Parole Town Center or somewhere else.
Patrick, my mom lives there. Does that count?
Absolutely, that counts. All right. So it looks like that is everybody who is going to vote. So it looks like most people live in the Annapolis area. We have a handful from outside of Anne Arundel County, and we do have one person who does live within the Parole Town Center. So that is helpful to know. Moving on, I do have a second poll question. How do you spend time in Parole? So give me 1 second to launch that. And you can choose as many of these choices to describe how you spend time in Parole. I'll give just a few more.
You didn't have visiting
moments.
mom as a choice.
Haha. I'll give about 10 more seconds.
I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy.
Days. Unlike an apple's plastic bag.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. And it looks like a lot of people everybody comes to Parole for shopping and dining, but then a whole slew of other opportunities as well, some for work and primarily medical and entertainment and business appointments. So, all right. Yeah, thank you for that. So I want to take a few minutes to go through and give a brief history of planning in the Parole Town Center and help set the context within which this master plan is being updated. So the Parole town center was designated first in 1970 in the 1978 General Development Plan for the county. That was when it was first designated as a town center. And the General Development Plan then encouraged in this area the establishment and growth of business, services, employment, and higher density residential. It was seen as an area to really try to promote the best possible transportation access and to promote a mix of uses in this Parole area. Now, the town center designation was carried forward through subsequent general development plans up to the 2009 General Development Plan and into the current draft Plan 2040, which is our current update to the 2009 General Development Plan. Plan 2040 indicates that the Parole Town Center is targeted for growth and development in order to absorb growth that would otherwise occur elsewhere in the county. And like I said, Plan 2040, the draft update to the 2009 GDP, this is in front of the county council now, going through the adoption process. But like all master plans that deal with land use and development, the Parole Town Center Master Plan update will need to be consistent with the goals and the policies of Plan 2040 once it is adopted by council. Now, the current master plan is from 1994, and it's called the Parole Urban Design Concept Plan. This is the master plan that guides land use and development in the town center, and it has key features that include it established what's called the Parole Growth Management Overlay. That's a zoning overlay that provided for additional development provisions on top of the development provisions that are provided by the underlying zoning. The 94 plan also established an incentive program for development, and that's where developers can in their projects provide enhanced design features in exchange for development flexibility. The 94 plan established goals of having a stronger mix of uses, including in particular having more residential in this town center area. Other goals included development intensity, street level activity, compact and walkable development, natural resource protection, and pedestrian friendly connections. The recommendations of the 1994 plan were principally implemented in a section of the county's development code, Article 17. And the provisions are a little bit complex, but so why are we updating now? Well, currently the plan is 27 years old, and the current growth in and around Parole, it is an opportunity, and it highlights the need to update and refine the planning tools for this area. And also here in 2021, we have more sophisticated planning technology and a number of related planning efforts to support our ability to improve the plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a little bit. So implementation is ongoing. A number of key recommendations from the 1994 plan have been or continue to be implemented. We have added a good bit more residential development to the predominantly commercial Parole area. Think of some of the apartment complexes over on Housley Road, the residential units in the Annapolis Town Center, Maris. That's just a few of the residential developments. There have been a number of commercial and office developments. The mall has expanded. The Gateway Village Shopping Center on Housley Road, the expanded hospital center, and a number of other office and retail developments. Mixed use development has occurred. The Annapolis Town Center is a premier example of that mixed use development, and there are several others that are in the development pipeline and under review in our office now. And finally, there have been some significant road linkages put through in the area since 1994, in particular, linking Route 2 at West Street all the way up to Bestgate Road, providing, well, actually Housley Road all the way from General's Highway to Defense Highway. is relatively new, and then the length of Admiral Cochrane all the way over to Route 2. Those are new road linkages since the 1994 plan. But of course, there are a lot of challenges, and these are the things that didn't fully get implemented from the 1994 plan. And it's not an exhaustive list that you see here, but and we're going to ask that you talk about this when we move into breakout groups in a little bit. But this list does include some of the feedback that we'd gotten from community input into the process back in 2017 and 2018, as well as some recent emails and questions that we've gotten. So I think a big goal from the 94 plan that was not implemented completely is there remains a lack of pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, as you can see in this photo here. Traffic congestion is still an issue that we're contending with. There are still areas of large areas of pavement and lack of tree canopy, particularly in some of our older developments. Some people will say there are not enough public amenities. And then there are some unseen challenges, things like national headwinds that we've heard about facing the retail market in general, and some of the general regulatory complexity for development in the Parole Town Center. So these are some of the things that we hope to begin addressing with this master plan update. Now, I want to go through a little bit of the timeline and give you some history about when this update started and where we are now with it. So there was a project kickoff back in 2017. We held a public in-person open house. This was pre-COVID. And in conjunction with that open house, there were a couple of surveys, a community survey and a visual preference survey that we gotten a good bit of public input on both of those. And the results of those are available on the project website. The project was paused in 2019 in order to allow for 2 important transportation studies to be completed, as well as to allocate staff resources to the update of the general development plan. The first of those transportation studies in 2019 or 2020, the Multimodal Transportation Center Feasibility Study. This study examined 2 locations for potential transit facilities in the Parole area, one at the Harry Truman Park and Ride, and this one would have been focused or is focused more closely on commuter transit, and a satellite transit center at the Westfield Mall that is focused on gathering local transit. In 2020 and ending in 2021, the Office of Transportation undertook the Parole Mobility Study, and this was a look to help identify short and long-term improvements to meet future multimodal mobility needs and to help provide a connected transportation network in the Parole area. I will point out that this mobility study did extend well beyond just the boundaries of the Parole Town Center. It included the Parole neighborhood in the city and extended all the way over to Chinkapin Round Road. And we were coordinated with the city on this effort. If you want to take a deeper dive into the recommendations of these 2 studies, there are links on our website. So here we are in 2021, and we want to pick up.
Patrick, tell me if now's not the time, but if I could just just following the discussion of Parole Mobility Study, there's a general comment I'd like to make if that's appropriate before we break out. Is that okay, or is that breaking protocol?
Sure, that's okay. Go ahead, John.
Or maybe
Can you
both.
introduce yourself too?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is John Cora, and I chair the Anne Arundel County Bicycle Advisory Commission, and I'm also a member of the Anne Arundel County Transportation Commission, and I'm president of Bike AAA, Bike Advocates for Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. So my angle on this is bikeability and walkability. And while I understand that there are boundaries, as Patrick showed us, around the Parole area that we're talking about, when it comes to bikeability and walkability, it's very important that it not only be bikeable and walkable within the boundaries, but also to and from. Right now, Annapolis Town Center is very walkable after you drive there and park your car.
Mhm.
And so while I understand the boundaries of the area, when it comes to transportation, I think the to and from the area need to be thought of as in scope here. And so that's just a sort of general comment that I have.
Thank you, John. Yeah, and that's an important point. And part of what the point that I was making about the mobility study is that it did look at an area wider than just the town center boundaries. So great comment, and please, continue that discussion as we go into a breakout room. So here we are in 2021. We're trying to pick up where we left off and begin to re-engage with the public and stakeholders on this plan update. We hope to incorporate the information from the two transportation studies and make sure that this update is consistent with the Plan 2040 GDP update. We have a survey, a community survey that is live now. It's available in both English and Spanish. And there's a link to that on our website. Most of you probably received a link to that via email as well. And we plan on launching additional public surveys in the coming weeks, and these will be more refined. And we will use all of this input from tonight and from these surveys to help refine the draft vision for the town center and the draft goals and policies for this master plan. We will continue working through that, and we anticipate that a draft plan will be adopted, or we anticipate that we will have a draft plan by the end of the summer, at which point we'll have a public forum and input session and comment period, and then aiming generally for adoption by the end of the year. So that's the overall timeline. It spans several years here due to the other master plans and the GDP. I do have one last poll before we break out into our breakout groups, and this last poll will hopefully prime you to discuss some of the opportunities and challenges in your breakout group. Now, give me 1 second to pull that up. What do you like best about Parole? So the polling is open now, and you can select as many of those as you would like. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the polling now. Let me share those results. So in general, it seems like people like the range of businesses and shopping and services that are all located here, the location generally. Some of these are answers that we had received in our previous surveys. So that was that was part of why we built this poll out. I actually expected maybe a little, and was hoping for maybe a little bit more something else. And that something else answer could be maybe a springboard for some discussions in our breakout rooms. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. And our plan now is what we would like to do is to break this group into smaller groups for discussions where we can talk about assets, challenges, and ideas for the Parole Town Center. And I'm looking, we have about 24 attendees. So I think what we might do is break out into two groups, and there will be, what's going to happen is there will be one staff member in each breakout room that will help facilitate the discussion and take notes during the discussion. We would like to have each of the two groups to have a citizen spokesperson who would be ready to report out to the larger group when we come back together after the breakout room discussions. So I'm going to take, if you'll bear with me for 1 second, what I'm going to do is select these breakout rooms. And the time is now, it's about 6:30. If we can go to about, what would that be? About 7, let's aim for about 7, like 10 minutes after 7, and we'll come back together and have a report out from the two groups. So if you will give me 1 second, I'm going to create 2 breakout rooms. All right, so Mark, if you can facilitate room number 1. And Carrie, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to facilitate room number 2. Okay?
Exciting. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. And I'll float between the two. So I'm going to open the rooms now. What I was hoping to do was to have a quick report out from each of the two breakout rooms, kind of going over basically some of what the key discussion points. Mark and Don, is there somebody from your group that would be willing to discuss?
Yeah. Steve was very excited to volunteer for this, so I'm going to share my screen and let him take the reins here.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And yeah, very eager. I won roulette. So as far as what we enjoy about Parole, sorry, let me minimize here. Okay, so lots of great restaurants, very commutable by car. Adjacent parks was waterworks, mix of housing types. There was a lot of density as far as medical center, professional services, proximity to Annapolis, downtown. I think John just brought to our attention that from the city center, I think it was about 2 miles. So yeah, centrally located, everything you need is it within 5 minutes. Truman Park and Ride is a great asset. Annapolis Town Center, Annapolis, Westfield Annapolis is not too bad too. And a variety of businesses and parking at those businesses. So we really like to be able to, it's really commutable by car, and then there's parking at each. Some challenges. So something what we really talked about was the commutability, specifically not by car. So we're so close to downtown Annapolis and other beautiful areas, and unfortunately, it's only commutable by car. So there is traffic congestion around Route 2. Additionally, US 50 and Route 2 run through the middle of it. So we're sort of handcuffed. Unfortunately, we can't develop or build or add green space to it because obviously we have main thoroughfares through there. So gaps in the sidewalk, bike network, lack of outdoor gathering spaces. So no proper city center, no proper green space. Residential, the housing tends to be pricey, and the energy grid is let's see, it's difficult to I think the energy grid, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, we need to upgrade the infrastructure, and then the Parole Town Center planning could be a little bit more I guess loose for upcoming businesses. So let's see here. So adopt new plan as soon as possible so requirements aren't antiquated. Have inhabited reuse redevelopment of property. Goal is to have families own one car, less money spent, more affordable. We brought up the example of Virginia Beach. So they have a new town center that is away from beaches. And one of the great things that they do is that they actually shut down main streets for a few weeks a year, and then they have restaurants in those areas. So one of the examples we talked about was town center, closing some of those streets and just have restaurants come onto those. E-commerce is affecting brick and mortar stores. So let the stores adjust, build in flexibility and regulations to meet market needs. There's a need for affordable housing. So how do we incentivize that? Density would help walkability. I believe John referenced that he had a millennial hire or applicant that actually would not relocate here because they were not comfortable driving. Incentivize residential density. Any type of bike, pedestrian, transit improvements are within and to from the surrounding areas. Let's see here. Having a public gathering place, outdoor like a concert, something similar to downtown Annapolis. And I believe that's it. So seasonal road closures, boulevard could be filled with restaurant tables, pedestrian mall, help push people out of their cars. Sorry if I missed something, guys.
Thank you very much, Steve. And Carrie, do
Good
you
job.
want Carrie, do you want to report out for your group?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot of parallels between that group and our group. So for our assets, we were similarly focused on the proximity of Parole to a lot of the surrounding gems, downtown Annapolis and the water specifically. Our group was kind of appreciating the parks that are nearby and the green space that they can access when they can access it, which sounds like it's mostly outside of Parole growth management area. I'm going to go ahead and skip through to challenges and ideas because that's where our most robust conversation happened. So similarly to the previous group, traffic congestion and car centrism were some of the challenges, but we spent a lot of time kind of trying to understand why it is that Parole doesn't necessarily feel like a neighborhood. Folks in my group reported challenges, feeling like they were a part of community or that there was a strong community there. Everything from not even understanding what the boundary of Parole is to sort of the heavy emphasis on commercial development that's not walkable, not easily accessible, and it's not necessarily well integrated with any of the residential development. There was definitely a similar emphasis on the need for more green space and more public gathering space. That was kind of floated as an idea to help resolve some of the lack of community feeling. We also definitely heard loud and clear that the aesthetics of Parole are not everyone's favorite. The quote was that it's ugly, and we would love to see more efforts to beautify the area and kind of draw as like a way to kind of build community, but also just to draw interest and help people think of it as a destination and a place where they'd like to spend time, and also that just reflects like their own sort of the things that they love about living there. For our ideas to improve Parole, I can't skip over what folks said about the development challenges. So we were fortunate to have some members of the real estate development community who are working in Parole or around the area in our group. They did remind Patrick and I that the development approval timelines are challenged, and that there needs to be some kind of reconciling of what's in the vision for the master plan of Parole as like a dense, walkable community area. There needs to be some reconciling of that with the standards that are currently in place that kind of make it more suburban and hard to achieve that vision. So we heard that, and I think that was a great contribution as well. For ideas on how to improve Parole, one of our community members suggested that we look more closely at Columbia. There was some idea that the emphasis there on green and public space has really improved the area downtown. appreciation for the mixed use model of development there and sort of like the village and neighborhood centric feel that Columbia has managed to build over the last couple of decades. We definitely heard again that plazas are important, that people need to be able to bike and walk there safely. And we had a closing comment about the need for more affordable housing so that the current and future residents can continue to enjoy Parole as a place to live. So I think anyone from my group wants to speak up because we didn't appoint a spokesperson. So holler if you want to add. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And thanks to all of you for that. I was sort of floating back and forth between the two groups, and there was a really good conversation going on in both places. And this is really important to us to hear from you all. And so all of these comments are definitely appreciated. I do have one. So I want to share my screen again, and I want to talk about what the next steps are with this process. And then we'll have a few minutes left. And if there are any kind of general questions, I can take those before we sign off. So let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so we've just done that. So our next steps in general, we've talked about a community survey, and I know from listening in on some of the groups that some of you have already taken that survey. We appreciate it. It's available through our website, aacounty.org/parolegma. Please share that with your networks. It is really important to hear from everybody, all of your ideas. This will be available through May 16th. We will have some additional survey and input opportunities. We're anticipating an interactive map. We're working with OIT right now to put that platform together. So we're anticipating that May 1st. It may happen later than that. We'll just see, but the timeline would be adjusted for that. You would receive an email when that's available and ready to go. That would allow some geographically based comments if you have any. We will use all of the information that we gathered from tonight's discussions and then from these surveys, from our prior engagement. These will be used to help refine a draft vision for the Parole Master Plan. We will share that vision with you all for input once that's put together. We anticipate another round of a public forum and a round of surveys in the late summer to begin to review key aspects of this draft plan. So that's kind of in a nutshell of the next steps for this plan. We will be posting the recording of this meeting online. So if you know of folks who wanted to join but could not, they can look for that online. So at this point, if you have any, let me stop sharing. If there are any questions that people have generally about this plan or the process, I'll be glad to take any at this point.
Patrick, I just have a comment.
Okay, yes.
It's Camille. I really have a big concern for all of the empty buildings. There's probably going to be more rather than less in the next coming months. And, you're seeing it everywhere. I mean, Main Street has it. The mall, I mean, my gosh, we've lost Nordstrom's. We don't know whether we're going to lose Macy's. Sears is gone. Applebee's is gone. Nobody likes hanging out anywhere where there's a ton of empty buildings. So I'd rather see less building and more retrofitting of existing space. We do have an awful lot of traffic already in our area, but and we don't have many trees. So I don't want to see any more trees being cut down. I'd rather see something done with the empty buildings. So that's probably one of my biggest concerns.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Camille,
In
I
our-
just
in our
made the
group,
note really big so that we're sure to emphasize that in our notes for you.
and in our group, we were talking about that too, because of the challenges of e-commerce and obviously, the pandemic, but allowing flexibility in the regulations so the shopping centers and malls can respond to the needs and be creative and attracting tenants so that they're, creating a vibrant environment is really important. One question, Patrick, I have in terms of timing. You're talking about the plan. Is the plan also going to be accompanied by code changes to Article 17 and 18? Is that the idea? And what would be the timing on that?
So this master plan is it's going to be written as a standard master plan that's a policy document, different from the way the Odenton Town Center master plan as it stands currently is a regulatory document. This parole master plan update will remain a policy document as the master plan currently is. So I would anticipate the master plan will make recommendations regarding changes to the development code and that sort of thing. How the timing will work out, obviously the master plan will make recommendations and those would need to be implemented through any code changes. I don't have a timeline for when those code changes would need to happen, except that they would happen after the adoption of the master plan. I don't know that people have thought, we don't have a timeline just yet for
Yeah.
exactly when.
And adoption of the plan would be kind of the end of this year.
That's what we're aiming for. Yes, we want to have a draft ready for the council to consider by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much. This is a really engaged group. I'm really glad that you all showed up. Please share the survey with your neighbors, your friends, your social networks. It'll be really important to hear from everybody. With that, I will go ahead and close out the meeting. Thank you very much and stay tuned for more.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care, all of you. Bye-bye.
Take care.